Hello and welcome to the next tutorial on data modeling. So what we're going to do is expand on what we've been doing in the previous module, and some of the questions you may have been asking. We sort of set the tone in the last video was thinking about the relationship between a customer and an order, and the questions you might have about this where, for example, an order has multiple items. But you may also have questioned why we split out the product and the category table. So for example, and this is all in the theory of normalization, if for example we wanted to have the product and category in the same table, let's just kind of model out how that might look. So let's just knock up a table here. Let's just call it product. We're going to give ourselves a little more space, and let's just call this product. So what you might have in this instance is, let's say we've got a product called iPad, we've got a product called computer, we've got a product called Alexa, a product called TV, and a product called car, and a product called motorbike. Now we would want to say what category or which category these belong to. So this would be electronics, this would be electronics, 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 this would be vehicles, and this would be vehicles. Now you can do it like that, but as you can see, there's a lot of inefficiencies that are starting to creep into the way we're storing our data, in the sense that we are repeating all of this data here. Apologies for that. We are repeating all of this data here and repeating it all over here. Now, as I've said, this is inefficient, but also there may be additional attributes. If you remember, attributes were something that described additional columns that existed. So these categories might have additional descriptions, and for each additional attribute or part of the description we'd want to store, this table here would just get wider and wider and wider, and you'd end up with all of the duplicated data. So that is why we normalize our data in these sorts of designs, to stay away from this sort of outcome. And let's just erase all of this here. Well, in fact, we don't need to. That's just going to waste too much time. The way that we do this here is to have our products over here, like our iPad, our computer, our Alexa, our TV, and over here we will just have one record called electronics, and this will contain all of the things to describe our category. And our product here, we will just have a key. Remember, we learned about keys and indexes over here that just points to electronics. And in fact, what you would find is that key would typically be a numeric value or something similar. So let's imagine that's 1, 1, 1, 1. And actually here, let's make some space, we would have category 1, which is electronics. Now the beauty of this is that if we ever wanted to change the description of the category, we might want to name it home electronics or electronics and gadgets. All we can simply do is just rename this section over here and call it gadgets. And what the beauty is of this is that it breaks absolutely no links between this table. All your links still remain valid. And that is why we separate out those tables. Now, let's delve into the example of order a little bit more. Let's find some space over here, and we're just going to find some space down here. And because an order can have multiple items on the order, what we're going to do is we're going to break this out into two. So there our two tables are, and we're going to call this one order header, and this one order detail. Now, when a customer places an order, imagine this is our first ever order on our web store, we are going to say we're dealing with order number 1, and then we're going to record the customer. Let's say it's customer A, and we're going to have some detail here, as in order date, order shipment address, all of those things. Every attribute that is common to the order as a whole. And once we've done that, we're going to start adding our items to the order. So that implies there's a relationship between these two tables. One order can have multiple items. So again, we're going to use that notation to show that there is a one-to-many relationship between these two. Now over here, I'm going to start saying, okay, let's imagine we're ordering 3 things. So there's going to be 3 items. They all relate to order number 1. So we've got one over here and one here, here, and here. And then we're going to say, well, what order line are we dealing with? 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to say over here, we ordering our products. Now we won't actually hold our product names in like iPad and computer and all of that. What we would really have here is the primary key, and that might be, let's just, for the sake of making it easy, Z, Y, X. And so when we order here, we're ordering those 3 items. They're going to be Z, Y, X. Now again, the beauty of this is that if we were to ever change the description of, say, for example, iPad, we could do that without affecting the orders over here. So it essentially isolates those two. And then within the order detail, we would continue to add columns that would say, you know, how many of that were item, what the price was, and all of those sorts of things. And then of course, this order header would essentially just join to the customer. So we've essentially separated this into 2 by almost kind of expanding them into this kind of setup over here. So that's how we take the data model to the next level. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to make this a little more formal and show you how to do this using some software called draw.io. You can use something like Visio as well, but you have to pay for that. Draw.io runs on multiple platforms, and it is in fact free. So let's see in the next video how we then bring this data model to life using something a little more formal, and the data model that you can then take into the build on your chosen platform.